Let's go into like mentoree mode.
I hear a lot of mentors. Fuck.
I went on a date recently with I'm like an idiot, you can tell by that last joke, I don't have deep thoughts. I'm just like, kind of like just walking through the world going like, rookie year. I just have weird thoughts. And I go out with smart people sometimes because, what's going on? We got some strong meth back up in this thing. Do you have a problem with something? Yeah. What's up?
This guy right here.
Dave Carter? Everyone loves him. Look at that beautiful bald bastard. We all love him. He's fucking best kisser in Manchester. What's wrong? What's wrong? Miss, I want you to have a good time, not a bad
I
time.
want to have a good time, but people open my space over here and then you can arrange for me a good time.
I hear that, girlfriend. People get up in your space. People get in my space too, bro. Alright, so let me tell you right now, everybody knows right now to give you fucking space. Everybody knows. You are the sun. Orbit that bitch, everybody. Do not fucking go near her. She wants her space uninterrupted. No, I meant it like, like in the black way, like, what up, bitch? Like, I'm my friend. We're friends! Friends! I'm trying to talk. What do you do for a living?
Excuse me?
What do you do for a living?
I'm a cosmetology instructor.
Cool.
Hairdresser instructor.
I know what cosmetology is. Do you correct people on that often, or do you go like, oh, you go to space? Is that why you like your space so much? Because you're a cosmonaut? I got you. I just got my hair cut today. What do you think?
It's some gel or something.
Well, ooh, I got the nastiest joke right here. But I'm not I would never do that. That's not my type of humor. No
The
way.
wine is blended though, so whoever did it, they blended it good.
Thank you. Whoever made your drink blended it good. I like you, man. I really do. This was fun.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are. Thank you for listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan. That's me. I'm Will. How are you guys? Different type of episode this week. I don't know if you can hear it right now, but I'm actually outside. I'm in a parking lot here in Pawtucket. Colleen Genevieve is pulling in her car right now, right next to me. And before you ask, we're not fucking. I know everyone's gonna think we're fucking anyway, but we're not. She's a new comic though, and she asks very good questions, and she was asking me a lot of questions week after week at Capo, and they were like good questions that people could learn from, that people should know. And I was like, we should be doing this as a podcast and not doing it every week, just talking, shooting the shit at Capo. And it was hard to do. It's always tough to get together. But here she is. She's arrived. She's dressed in a very summery type fashion. Hey.
Hi.
You want to hear yourself? You can put these on if you want. But I only have one pair right now.
Okay.
Just so you can hear what it sounds like.
Oh.
Hey.
Cool. All right.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Sorry this was such a fucking pain in the ass.
No, not at all. This is great.
I'm a little bit bummed because my brakes started making a god-awful sound right as I pulled into this parking lot. So I'm like 80% sure it'll make it back to Boston just fine.
It's going to cost you $300.
It's going to cost me $300.
Yeah, no, for
minimum.
sure.
It's a scary sound.
It's awful.
And yeah. So anyway, that just happened. You
Fun.
can see like where I was fucking throwing water on my brakes and I like popped the hood. I pretended like, I jiggled the brake lines, but other than that,
This is great. You thought water was going to fix that.
yeah. I just realized my car's running.
This is fun. This must be so entertaining. We're in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, known as the Bucket.
I've never seen you this subdued in my fucking life. And I just was talking like before you came on here about how fucking excitable and like crazy you are. And I was also saying that we aren't fucking, even though everyone after they hear this is
Okay.
they're
Yeah.
all gonna say we are.
I mean, hi.
So if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I mean, I was kind of saying what you are and who you are, but
What were you
a
saying?
total whore.
That's fair.
No, I was just saying how like we've been talking after Capo, and I was like, man, these are all good comedy questions. And
So I'm a big nerd, and I want to get really good really fast. So all I do is I drive around and I annoy the shit out of Will with all of my questions, all of them. And then, yeah, so I am a brand new comedian. I am 2 years in as of June 2nd. Bam!
bam.
Bam!
Which is funny for other people listening. They might be like, 2 years? That doesn't sound brand new.
No, it's so new.
Yeah.
It's so awful and new, but it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started comedy after a clown dumped me, and I just rolled
After a
with
comedian
it.
or a real clown?
No, like Ronald McDonald.
Wow. We'll save all this bio for your official podcast that'll come up in 7 years. But for now, let's get down to it because we only have like a half an hour, 40 minutes.
There we go.
So
This is so
Showtime.
prepared. Okay, so yeah, I have all these questions about so just a little preface is I started as an acting major. I got my BFA at Rhode Island College, and
that's why your questions are good.
okay, well, it's with acting. There's this structure to it, right? Like you study a play, you read the lines, you delve into these emotions that you've already experienced as a human. And it has more structure than it does comedy. And for someone that's very excitable with severe ADHD, it's great to have structure.
Yeah.
Then I found comedy, a stand-up specifically, and there's no structure.
None.
At all. And that's terrifying.
Even from person to person, I would say each comedian has their own style and way of writing, and way of performing. So.
But there has to be
there are some fundamental truths.
There has to be some, and I want to find out those fundamental truths by you.
So, exactly. So I've already prefaced with
Okay.
that we are not fucking. I also want to preface it
Okay.
with I do not know it. I don't
I
think
should
I know
feel
everything.
insulted by this.
No, because
but that's fine.
every time a woman is on the podcast, the listeners are like, this must be Will's new woman.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, Will's not fucking me.
Yeah.
He's made that very clear several times.
and that's
fine.
not
I'm
true.
only crying inside. You guys can't hear it.
I
Good
date
thing
all
this isn't-
races but comedians. You started to get too good at comedy, and then I was like,
That's
yeah, I
it.
can't be hanging out with this chick. She's like a real comedian now. You know?
Ooh, that's great. I'm
Yeah.
still insulted, but it's fine.
But it softened it a little.
Nope. The first question I had, so I'm at 2 years, and I wanted to start to ask about joke writing because I feel like my jokes hit the ones that I know are good, but it's very inconsistent. So what makes a joke consistent, and what makes it hit in any accessible? You're doing a clean show. You're doing a show in
Yeah.
rural Massachusetts. You're doing a show in Arkansas. How do you know this material is consistent?
Yeah, it's always. I mean, that's a great question. as I always say to Colleen, and like I said, I don't think I know everything about comedy, but it is interesting. We talk a lot about comedy, and you're 2 years in, I'm 10 years in, so we got a lot of things to talk about. So I think that's a tough question right out of the gate. But it's this whole factor of repetition that we have talked about before. It's it's sort of I try and say, I've been doing these high school prom gigs and high school all-night lock-in party gigs this summer or this spring into summer or whatever. and they're brutal, you know. And I've been doing them since I was like 5 years in, but now they're not so hard because I just have enough jokes. Like I have so many fucking jokes that I can eat dick for an hour. That's like what a real headliner can do is like suck, bomb for an hour. And
Okay.
so I'm like, I'm of the mind that night after night after night, if you're actually going up there and trying and remembering what works and, you know, forgetting what doesn't and actually keeping track of that kind of stuff mentally and even with notes, like, it's kind of like you have this great crazy thing happen to you in college and now you're 30 and you've been telling that story for 10 years. By the time you're 30, that story is like really fucking good. It has like no fat on it.
Yeah.
It's like all the important parts. It keeps everyone interested. It's just a joke is just a microcosm of a great life story. It's just a short one. So you just tell it 1,000 times, you know, and it's like it's the bummer. I'm doing it right now. I'm trying to like come up with a whole new bunch of shit, and it's like such a slow process that each time I do it, I'm like, man, I forget how fucking slow this is.
Are you coming up with a whole new bunch of shit to like have more material, or because you feel like you're done with the material you've been doing for so many years?
I'm done.
You're done.
With the stuff I'm doing right now. Like even the stuff I really love, it's just like to keep me like loving this every single night, I have to like come up with new shit, because if I don't, I'm just be like, I don't know, there'll be nights where I'm just so bored or so.
Yeah.
I noticed like a few years ago I started getting a little bit of a rut with stand-up where I was kind of like not excited to go to shows, and I was like, this is weird, this is like my favorite thing in the world, why am I all of a sudden like dragging ass to go to shows? And it was because of that. It was because I hadn't written anything like I was excited about in a while.
Do you, I mean, with that question, what leads me to ask this is, it's going to be weird because you're so much farther along, so you trust in your ability more. But when you were not consistently booked at bigger clubs, how did you trust in the fact of you're like, okay, I'm done with this material?
That's a good, yeah, that's tough. That is tough to know. I think the audience kind of lets you know. I mean, I still have I have bits that are so fucking old now.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm just like, you know, telling them, I think of something that night. Like, I've told this joke 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And I come up with something, I say it, and I'm like, damn, that's a nice little addition to that joke. It really like finishes it off. Too bad it's on an album and it's like done.
Okay.
But I guess it's never totally done. But you start to get the feeling from the crowd, like, all right, this is hitting like 90%. Everyone has like their own barometer. Yeah. I like a high percentage joke. Like I pretty much only keep high percentage jokes. But that's just me. Like some guys are like totally fine with, you know, last night's crowd liked it, tonight's crowd didn't. Like it's just that kind of bit, you know?
Yeah. So you would go for, no, it has to consistently work.
I mean,
to keep it.
Yeah. I have bits like that, but to me it's almost like the only ones worth keeping.
Yeah.
You're kind of fooling yourself with the other ones. You're kind of going like, yeah, that's a good bit. They just didn't get it tonight. It's like, no, you just...
Yeah.
It should be like, most jokes should be so accessible. Like, I feel like a comedy club's such a beautiful thing because you have like a dentist and his plumber in the same room, like laughing at the same shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an equalizing thing.
It's nice.
So it's like, but that's also just kind of like the way I like to do comedy. Maybe not everyone does. But.
Speaking about comedy clubs.
Yeah.
I have a million questions. Speaking about comedy clubs, like when you were newer and breaking into them, how did you know you were ready to like say to Laugh Boston, hey, or I don't even know the process because I'm a Rhode Island comic.
Yeah.
But how did you know like, okay, you know what? I have this material. This isn't gonna... Like,
that's tough because I had the fucking... I started in New York where like my first night ever on stage was like I did an open mic and then I came back. I did an open mic and they were like, come back on Friday. Do like our Friday night show. And I was like, oh, I'm the bomb, you know? And then I show up Friday and they're like, here's like a bunch of flyers. Go hand them out on like 2nd Avenue.
Yeah.
And come back. It was actually Broadway and I'm like, all right. I still thought I was like the shit, but that's just how it goes. So, but you're on shows with like real guys right away. So it's kind of like, so I was already kind of, I belong in clubs. 'Cause that's just how comedy works. But I do see up here in Boston and New England, there's like a very different thing where it's like, it's more like
it's like open mics, bar shows.
Yeah.
Then like slowly you get into this place that maybe this other person works at, and
yeah, and comedy's gotten stranger in that sense too, where there's like such a difference right now between like clubs and bar shows. It used to be kind of like bar shows were just like shitty versions of club shows.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of more. It's like they're two different scenes almost. Like there's comics in Boston that I don't think ever even want to do clubs, but to me it's like if you want to make a living doing stand-up, you got to do clubs.
The club's the end game, essentially, in my opinion,
as Tony Stark would say.
With like, what's the etiquette, do you think, to like, hey, I would really like to audition for you, but, and then let's say you pass and you get it, what's then the business etiquette of following up? Can I have another show? Like, so it always feels like I'm inviting myself over to someone's house, and that's the worst feeling in the world.
Okay. It's okay. We edit.
Cool. Can you edit out the 13 times you said you wouldn't fuck me for everyone?
I didn't say I wouldn't. I said we're not. That's a big difference. I'm just saying it for all the. I probably will edit out like 2 of them.
Okay, thanks.
And I said it like before you even pulled up. I was like, just so for the listener, because it's just in my experience having women guests on this podcast, it's just like I do hang out with women that I don't sleep with, but anyway. So
the etiquette. What would be Will's etiquette?
Well, you need 5 solid minutes.
Yeah.
And really more.
Yeah.
5 solid minutes, I think, to get in. And it's like, it's tough to say because you do have to you have to lie to yourself a little bit in this business, like from the entire process, from like day 1 to day 1,000. It's like you always have to kind of be, yeah, I can do this. Like, I got this. So the truth is, like, I probably wasn't ready. Like, I probably wasn't what I would call ready now when I started hosting at clubs. There's a little bit of on-the-job training, and that's really like the bookers kind of have a lot of people hate bookers, but they do kind of have a good eye for who is going to develop into a good talent. Like, they're not always necessarily right about who's funny and who's not funny once everyone's like established, but they do know a lot of the times who's going to be. I've learned to, like, just doing it. You can see sometimes with an open micer in their first year or two, you're like, oh, that guy, like, as long as he just sticks with it. Yeah. That guy or girl, as long as he sticks with it, like, they'll be a good comic. I love that. That's like one of my favorite things about comedy is like seeing that, and then a few years later, especially when you don't see people that much, and then a few years later you see them, you're like, oh my God. They clicked, they found their thing, and they're good now. That's not going to happen without hosting. So you kind of have to bullshit them and yourself and be like, I'm ready to MC. Yeah. You're going to have some good nights, you're going to have some bad nights. But I think, like, criteria-wise, like blueprint-wise, you want to have, 5 solid. Don't go in there. A lot of guys, like I see it, they want to do it instantly. Yeah. They do an open mic, they don't die on stage physically, and they're like, all right, I'm ready to I'm ready to be famous. Like, let's call ABC and get my sitcom ready.
But I just feel like because you used to act, or you started acting.
I still act.
You still act.
I began as an actor.
I will end
One
as
never
a
stops.
Okay. Well, anyways.
All the world's a stage.
Yeah, cool. But with auditioning,
never fucked, by the way. Never one time.
Wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot ball. No one do it. And by it, I mean her.
Are you going to tell me your real age after this?
Nope. Especially now that you broadcasted how unfuckable I am.
It's just becoming the joke,
Yeah, great. I love this.
I hope the next question is about how long to go with a joke, because the answer is forever.
No such thing as a dead horse in comedy.
Nope.
With acting, you have this one audition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I feel, and I talk about this a lot, like every opportunity I get with a club or with anything is like this one acting audition.
Yeah.
And
clubs are. I mean,
It sounds like you're saying like they know or they have some
yeah.
leniency.
Like a lot of times when a club hires an MC, they're like going, you know, like the club here in Rhode Island, the Comedy Connection, Providence.
It's a great club.
It's the only club too, but I see how it defines Rhode Island comedy
Yeah.
pretty much, because Bowden's there, Ray's there, and like all the headliners that come
Yeah.
to town go there, and the classes are there, and like the best shows are there. So it's like those guys have almost kind of like a bigger responsibility than some club owners to sort of keep a scene alive as
Yeah,
well.
because it's the only club. Absolutely.
So I've seen how it works there, and I do think they have a good eye for like guys and girls who at first, like, because I'm only coming in once in a while to Providence. I'm
Yeah.
up in Boston, so I'll be like, why the fuck is this person around? But then you see them like a year later and they're really good. So I'm like, all right, they have an eye for talent. You know, I met Jonathan Tilson there. He's like a funny dude. He's super fucking funny, you know?
It's funny.
So, and I had never like heard of him before, and they found him. So it's like,
Yeah.
they like know what they're doing. So it's kind of like there is a thing sometimes in comedy where guys have been doing it 6, 7 years, 8 years, and they're like, I can't get into the hosting thing. Then it's time to start, I think, thinking like maybe you're not fucking ever gonna do it.
Okay.
Because
That's my one thought. I'm like, is anyone going to tell me if I'm not funny? Like, a
no,
couple
pretty
years?
much not. As long as you keep like supporting open mics and like bringing people to bring your shows or whatever, people will always like
Yeah.
keep you around. You can get used in comedy too, you know. Used
Back-
and abused.
To the joke structure, because that sounded like a sad segue.
That's
So we talked about this before. I had this joke where I mentioned a specific incident, and you're right, it did not go over well because it was a
Oh,
specific
you can talk
incident.
about that on here.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to.
Okay.
No,
School shooting.
A school shooting, and I mentioned Parkland shooter would swipe left on me or right, whichever one
yeah,
that
yeah.
means you don't get laid.
Uh-huh.
And now your joke just kind of supports that not even a school shooter would take me out.
totally-
It's fine, Will. Anyways,
Totally just trying to protect you. There's Marie Forster, who I'd bang so hard. Hot young comic. No, just kidding.
also a redhead. That's
also a
fine. I'm
redhead.
fine. But so with joke structure and jokes and all that, the specificity I see with a lot of people really supports them. I feel like when I get specific with detailings in a joke, it's only adding more useless
Yeah,
fat
you can't
words.
have like that. Yeah, useless fat words you want to fucking get rid of. I think there's a thing I see a lot of comics do a lot, which is like talk themselves out of getting laughs from the crowd.
Yeah.
Like, they're like almost like, it's like the crowd's digging it, and they're like, they don't know what to do with that energy, so they like ruin it. They like talk their way out of it. It's the thing with the Parkland, like mentioning something specific and sad, is it's like it takes them out of the realm of fantasy and into
Yeah.
the realm of reality. It's the same thing when there's this great comic in Boston who has like a ton of jokes about sex. She's like a female comic. She has a ton of jokes about daddy issues and her dad and stuff. And a lot of times he comes out to the shows, and if she doesn't do this anymore, but she used to like be like, my dad's here, guys. Like if she says that before she's told those jokes, it's like the jokes don't even do 25% as well as they would.
Yeah, because it's real.
Because now it's like, he's here, and like, should we laugh? Like, so much mental math. You want them thinking as little as possible. It's like a type of hypnosis. You want them only thinking about the words you're saying. You want them in the world you're like creating for them. You want them in that area with you. It's impossible to get it all. They're going to be ordering food. They're going to be looking at their phones. They're going to be like looking at each other. They're ordering drinks. But as much as possible, you're trying to, just like an actor, like create a place where they kind of are realizing shit they already knew, and they didn't even know they already knew. It's not like necessarily like, listen to let me put my thoughts inside you. It's like, let me just awaken the thoughts you already have and you didn't even know it. You know?
Whoa.
That's like my favorite reaction from the crowd is like when they're like, oh yeah, I like agree with you, you know? And they're like, I do feel that way about that thing, and I didn't even realize it annoyed me so much, you know? So that's kind of like my favorite thing. And some local youths are catcalling my guest.
Not me. They're catcalling Will, if anyone, apparently.
You know,
I came up
do
dressed
dig,
as a potato.
Young Portuguese kids in Pawtucket love my comedy. It's the biggest market for me right now.
Yeah, he definitely knows that they were Portuguese. Definitely does. That was so spot on. It's like Will's a detective.
Were they Portuguese? No.
No,
Was
definitely
those
not. We're in
Spanish?
Pawtucket. I'm assuming Dominican.
Oh, Dominican? Okay.
Yeah.
This is your hood.
This is. I went to school here. So we're gonna switch gears.
Switch gears.
We're gonna switch gears here. Is this all the energy you
Yeah.
wanted?
Hold on, I'm getting a boner from that sound effect.
Oh God, I actually feel very complimented.
I'm the one
this
who made
is
it.
exactly what
I'm
I
the one
wanted.
who made it like all about sex. I'm like, first of all, everyone's all about sex. So let me just make this all about sex.
Let's take a young lady who is very vulnerable all the time, announce to the world she's not fucking me.
You said you're not young the last time. You said you're not as young as I thought.
Yeah, you thought I was like 19.
That was a big part of the reason why I was backing up. The first night I met you, I was hitting on you a ton, and then I was like, man, this is wrong. She's like, she's like looking up to me like in comedy, and she's like 19. I was like, this is straight up wrong. So then I was
Oh
like,
my
let's go
God.
into like mentoree mode.
I hear a lot of mentors. Fuck. No,
Yeah.
anyways, this is about comedy.
I can't help it on this podcast but to just open up and be entirely truthful.
That's great. You could maybe hinder the truth on how much I'm fuckable.
I haven't
how
said that
not.
one time. You're going to listen to this, and my voice just got so high when I said that. But you're going to listen to this and be like, he never said that.
But I'm only going to hear you saying that. I'm actually going to rewrite it, listen to it, and think, yeah, no, he said
It's
that.
so funny because women comedians have this thing like that other women don't have, where like you put yourselves down. It's a thing I've never really gotten used to totally from women comedians. Even though I have friends with tons of them, I haven't for years. It always, still to this day, takes me by surprise a little bit.
Okay, well,
Because women
most
in
of the
real life
time,
so rarely put themselves down
that's not true. I don't think
around dudes. maybe.
again, don't think that's true. From my perspective,
Not an ultimate truth.
From my perspective, I never like punching down. Wait, yeah, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking bad about someone else in comedy.
Well, I mean, it's someone below you.
Yeah. I don't like punching down. I also don't like being mean to people in general. So I will go for myself
Oh, yeah.
and punch up. Also,
That's a
women
key.
comedians usually had to build their personality because they weren't getting fucked in high school. So yeah, they're the ones that are really insecure. Will?
All right. Okay.
Will?
Guys are insecure, too. Everyone's insecure.
Ugh.
All right. Everyone thinks they're the only insecure person.
Anyways.
Enough of that digression.
This is just great. This is all about comedy.
We're cooking. We're cooking with gas.
What did you think at
EJ Edmonds.
Hey.
How you doing? Good to see you, too. Say hello to the listeners.
Hey, listeners, who's
We're doing
listening?
my podcast. We're doing
Oh,
some
nice.
podcast questions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had her on it?
Oh, no.
Do you-
I just want everyone to know. EJ went, ew, you had her on it?
She asked good questions. That's the point. We're talking comedy. Stick around. You can answer as many of these as I can. Right?
So what? Yeah, you can only stick around if you don't insult my visual aesthetic.
Go fuck yourself. No, this is what I'm here to do. This is what I do. I'm an antagonist. This is what I'm here for.
Thank you, EJ.
How you doing?
Me?
Yes, how are you doing?
Oh, we can talk after the podcast. I'm
All
okay.
Well, so the thing is, I will say, she wants to be good at comedy. She asks great questions. She comes up to Boston at Capo every week.
Nice.
She asks tons of questions. I'm like, we should just do a podcast where you ask me these questions. That way everyone can have the answers.
That's a great idea.
You know?
Why didn't I think of that? Don't nobody ask me shit. Oh,
Maybe because you're so rude to me all the time.
that could be it.
Yeah.
Could be it. I don't do it on purpose though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hypothetically, that's the name of this one, right? Yeah, I subscribe, dude. I'm a fan.
Thanks, EJ.
Yeah.
Okay, so the
Did you
next.
hear Colleen just went, at you? I felt like that she wasn't doing that before you got here.
No, it was very racist. I just wanted to speak in his language, dog.
Oh yeah, because I talk like that.
Yeah.
So this is something I feel like both of you can answer. What was the most valuable thing you learned through either like your own actions or someone like sharing information with you that, like, let's say I'm at year 2, so I still have ways away, but like year 5, year 6, year 7, like took you to another level? Like, what was the thing that clicked that you were like, this is my voice, this is my aesthetic?
I've said this a bunch, but like 2 things for me, and then I'll pass the mic to EJ. But for me, it was like taking the mic out of the stand and putting the stand away. I think I was like 3 years in or 4 years in. I was like, I saw this guy, Chris Fleming, who's now famous, but back then he wasn't. But I was like, this dude is like the shit, and he doesn't even need a microphone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's telling the whole story. I knew I wasn't going to be just like him, but I was like, I could be doing a lot more to like tell stories with my body and with my hands and everything like that. That was like a huge breakthrough at 3 years. And I think at 7 years, I had like another breakthrough when I started doing this podcast and started talking a lot more. I do it by myself a lot. And I started, when I was on stage, I started to kind of feel like a blur between like the podcast and being, I was just as comfortable on stage. I started to get as comfortable on stage as I was in my car talking to myself. So I was like, that was 2 practical things that I did.
Okay.
EJ Edmonds.
Okay. Repeat the question.
Okay. The question was, what do you feel, or what was a valuable thing you learned, whether through your own actions or through someone else sharing this with you, that took you to the next level, right? Like from 5 years in to like, you know, just that next level of like being a comedian, not like an open micer or not someone that's just like getting to the host spot, but like being like, oh, book EJ.
Oh, I got the question about 10 minutes ago, but I can go ahead and answer
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Like 10 minutes ago.
Great.
No, like the first one, it was about 2 or 3 years in. One of my guys told me, Clay Miles, good friend of mine. He said, talk to everybody like they're your friends.
Okay.
Get on stage. It's not a fucking recital. They're there to be entertained. So act like they're your friends. And a couple of years later, maybe about 5 years in, a gentleman by the name of Tony Woods, he was sitting and bullshitting with me after a show we did, and he said, what you present to them is what they see.
Okay.
So if you want to be a rock star, go up there and be a fucking rock star.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Eventually, your reality will catch up to your actions.
There we go.
You know what I mean? So that's what I do.
Tony Woods knows a lot more than me.
Tony Woods is the god.
That
He's
dude is the funniest
He's
fucking
like
guy.
stand-up
Yeah.
comedy, I swear.
So that's basically in one sentence what I've been trying to say this whole time. Like, that is such a perfect thing. It's like you create that reality in that moment too. A lot of times you'll see guys when everyone's bombing on a show, all you have to do is just go up and reset it. Like, just go up and make something happen. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's something stupid, but it just resets it, you know? Like anything. Just create something real that happened. A lot of times guys will do it. They'll feel that instinct, start doing crowd work, then get scared and back out.
So when you say reset it, like, can you elaborate? Like,
you know
how
what I mean?
would you
Don't be
reset?
uncomfortable. Like, that's what happens. When people are bombing, they get uncomfortable.
Okay.
The shit happens.
Yeah.
Okay? Just stay with it.
They're looking to the audience is looking to you as a but also as a you're like the thermometer for how they should feel.
Okay.
So it's like if you look scared and like you don't know what the fuck is going on,
Yeah.
it makes them nervous. You're like a doctor doing surgery on them. All they want to see from you is confidence, and you know what you're gonna like. This is all gonna be fine. We're gonna have fun. It comes with time. You see the veteran comics, they have this like, oh, like that joke failed. Fine, I got a million more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the newer comics who are like, if you don't like that joke, what if you don't like this joke?
Yeah.
And da-da-da-da-da, and it's readable.
So speaking of like controlling the room, I've lately been on like a lot of shows. Like, there's a perfect example. EJ's done it. I'm not sure. I'm sure you've done it, but I haven't seen you done it. The hardcore show at Comedy Connection.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's a great show, but
Brian Bowden.
Second shout out. Yes. Yeah.
but like those are rowdy crowds because it's like the late show. Okay, all right.
They get way rowdier than that.
Okay,
They get way rowdier.
I've seen some rowdy crowds, and I've also seen I've seen comics control it without like just getting louder in volume.
Yeah.
But it's still, how do you make the crowd not be assholes?
The best. I wrote a joke for that when I first started. I
Asshole crowds.
did a lot of I did tons of bar shows. You know, like loud bar shows where like they're just not even looking at you.
Yeah.
So I used to have a joke that I used to close with. It's not like a joke I'm super proud of or anything like that.
Run it, let's hear it.
But I was like, it's based on a true story. I was like, come on over, Tilson. We're talking comedy. Jonathan, you've already been mentioned on this.
You have.
You just come from playing squash, you fuck. Why you dressed like that?
I'm actually going to do it in between these two cars.
Go ahead, buddy.
Oh, wait, no.
I'd say you could use my back seat, but it's too small.
No, I didn't.
Just don't look at me.
I would never, Tilson.
Anyway, the joke was not great, but it was based on a true story.
You were new. Like,
And it's actually doesn't even make sense anymore because ringtones aren't like a thing anymore. But it was a joke about ringtones. But it had long time ago, back in New York, had a one-night stand with this girl, and the whole time, the only sound she made while we had sex was on a loop. She would just go, yeah, yeah, like the whole time, right? So I'm telling the story I would just do that bit. And at the end, I'd be like, I don't know if you've ever had sex with a ringtone before. That was my closer for like 2 years. But when I do bar shows and shit, I'd open with it because people would be like, rah, 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 and then they'd just hear like, yeah, and the first time they'd hear it, they'd be like, ignore it. And then the second time and by the end of the joke, they'd be like, what the fuck? And then I'd have them for like a couple seconds. So then it was like, bah, 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 bah. If you can make them laugh, then all of a sudden you had a real comedy show.
Whoa.
You know? That was one trick.
yeah.
Your turn.
What do I do?
Yeah.
I'll just stand there. Won't say shit. Like that's really my thing.
I'm
I'll stand there and I just won't say anything.
all set for now, thank you. You can talk.
You know, like what it is, you just stand there, you smile, you give up a certain energy. You can give up energy without saying a fucking word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And usually, if they're not paying attention, they'll be like, all right, somebody just came up, people clap, why ain't nobody saying nothing? And they'll look. And then when they look, I try to make eye contact with as many people as possible. Then I start talking.
Okay.
And
That's
usually
interesting.
Another great way to do it.
Okay.
I
This
smile, I go up
new
there
question.
And I smile and I don't say shit.
Okay. So how did you get comfortable with silence then? And name the moment that you realized that you were like okay with being silent.
I know a guy, this comedian, John Fish. You know John Fish from New York?
I've heard the name, never met him though.
He was a guy, I was emceeing for him at, I wasn't comfortable with silence, but I was emceeing for him at Motley's, which isn't a club anymore. But he was,
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Motley's. But he was like, you know, it was a club that was small, and sometimes guys would come in and they wouldn't have, like, even the headliner would have a hard time, you know? So I was watching him, and he was like, I go up, MC, bomb. Feature goes up, bombs. And he goes up, and he was the pro, a headliner, and he was kind of like what you just said. He was just like, he would tell a joke, and he wouldn't, like, rush into the next one. He was, like, literally, he was taking, like, deep breaths, like, looking around the room. And I'm like, in the corner, like, what an asshole. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. But within 20 minutes, he was killing.
Yep.
Wow.
Like, they were the best crowd. And that, I mean, if I remember it, I remember that night. I tell him every time I see him, I'm like, remember that night? Like, it was a huge night for me because I was like, wow, you don't have to. Because until that night, I'd probably been like, you got to feel that silence, man.
Yeah.
You got to, like, you're almost like up there like a fucking, like an animal. You know what I mean? Like a trained, like, circus animal.
No, every
Just like,
time
don't-
there's
just don't look
silence.
away, you know?
It feels like I should never have stepped on the stage. Like every time
Yeah.
that there's silence, it's like, why did I even grab this
You
microphone?
know, like, honest, I would use because that's like something you kind of have to like get used to, like fall in love with almost, the silence. So like yeah, I like it now too. So I would say like just the fact that you're already cognizant of it and like wanting it to work that way is good. So I think like just don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to do it at an open mic or a show or anything, you know?
Oh, see, that's what I was talking about earlier with being afraid, like the first audition, like the thing that's like, well, they'll think I'm not bookable ever again if you like want to try out these skills. And oh, okay, another question. You get to answer the first one.
Aren't you glad you had her on your
This is what, right?
Nah, that's my homie.
It's not bad, right? Everyone
yeah.
does. That's what it's a little bit of light hazing.
All right, don't make it weird.
Comedy's little sister.
Aww.
Who's not so young or
Fuckable.
little.
Not fuckable at all. He spent a half hour saying, don't fuck Colleen.
I just
She's
said at the
ratchet.
beginning, before you all send me a million emails, we're not fucking. Because you know how it looks. Oh, let me have this new comic with no credits on my podcast. That everyone's.
Yeah, they automatically assume you beating them cheeks or something.
All right.
I'm like, this is happening right now. It's already a dude composing an email like, I know why you had her on.
Oh man, she sounds impressionable. How trying it out at shows, what you just said about like try it out at shows. Like I don't mind trying anything at mics 'cause I feel like it's a mic. That's what it's there for. But for a show, like there's so much it feels like there's so much risk in like trying it. But then I feel like to get a good like sense of like, oh, this is something I can do, you have to try it at a show. But I don't want to ruin that. Like I don't want to close.
In the middle of shit that you know works.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's what I always do. So
Yeah.
Like, all right, this joke's a banger. Okay.
Yeah.
I got this one. Let's try my new shit out in the middle, because if that don't get you, this one will, and we're still good.
Yeah.
That's the same here. I mean, that's the thing. Once you have a good enough opener, good enough closer, everything else is kind of like playtime. Especially when you've got when you're doing 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, then you really start to be able to have time to come up with new shit and develop shit.
Yeah.
But it's like, I always tell people, like, don't put the cart before the horse, like, when you're trying to get 5, 6, 7 minutes. Like, focus on that, like, 5, 6, 7. If you got something in anything, just make it longer, make it better, like, do anything with it. And then once you're getting up in front of crowds 2 nights a week, real crowds 2 nights a week, then you can start kind of thinking like that, I guess. But it's I don't know, what do you say? Any easy answers to that?
Yeah, I mean, just what I said. You gotta you have to just kind of structure it. Like if you know you have stuff that works, and what he's saying, like if you have a 5 to 7 that you're working on, work on that. Like, you know what I mean? Get that tight. Like,
I break it into quarters. It's like a basketball game. So it's like the third quarter is where I try new shit. The rest of that time is like I'm just trying to win the game. You know what I mean? But the third quarter is where I'm like, whatever, I'll fuck around a little bit. When I wrote that closer with the girl reading on paper, it was like a license to fuck around for 5 minutes before it, because it was like the most consistent joke I ever wrote. So I was like, all right, now I can like fucking do whatever, because I can always close strong with this one thing. She just inhaled some vaporized weed.
No, please don't do this. I teach in Rhode Island.
That was a joke.
Oh yeah.
That was totally a joke.
Yeah, all the fuck talk. They're gonna love that though.
Yeah, all the anal talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had conversations.
We had anal talk.
Anal. The word anal comes out somehow.
Okay. You also met me a year in.
You don't do anal.
I used to do a lot of terrible jokes. I still do. Anyways, okay, so
Come on.
I know.
no, I have it. What is a specific moment in your comedic career in stand-up that you were like, oh, never do that again, but you're happy it happened because that was the only way you're going to realize never to do that again?
I said cunt. I said cunt when I was like featuring, and it was like it just doesn't. I would never say that in my regular act. I would never say. I don't say it in my regular life.
You got a little frisky.
I did. I was like, I was killing pretty much for the first time, you know, like a real one. Like I'm in this crowded comedy club. I'm the feature. I was killing. And you know what it was is I was trying a lot of different stuff, and a lot of it was working. Like everything else I was trying was kind of working. I was trying to be a little dirtier than normal. That was working. I was swearing a little more. That was working. And then it was like I was doing the bits I normally do, and I was like, in this cunt, and it was like.
It's like him having some really raunchy sex, and all of a sudden he sticks a thumb in her butt.
Yeah,
Game over.
yeah. Just,
Like,
yeah, all of a sudden it's
no,
like.
the thumb wasn't necessary.
It was a
You could've left the
break.
thumb out.
Yeah.
I went from killing to go fuck yourself. And it was one of those things I never forgot. Never forgotten.
Did you recover from it?
Yeah, as much as I didn't totally. Yeah, I recovered, but it was like it took the wind out of my sails, big time. Like,
Yeah?
It took the set from an A to a C like in 1 second, a C. No pun intended. Like no joke.
Yeah.
But it was like right to it, and that's something. I'm like, I've heard comedians say cunt a million times and they get laughs, but it's like, I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
So it was like coming from me, it was like, what a dick, you know?
Yeah.
You got a story like that?
All right, thing that I shouldn't have done. Here we go. I was doing a show for a friend of mine. It was a fundraiser. Okay, and I'm just in the crowd talking to people. Like, I hadn't really looked around. It was a gang of people there. I saw one black person, and I said something about, I asked something, and I called this lady bruh, because I thought it was a dude.
I've done that a lot too.
And she's looking around. I was like, hey, yeah, I was talking to you. I'm sorry. I was like, look, I'm nearsighted. Like I said, no, and then I was like, look, all right, I'm just kind of jealous. Like I'm jealous of your fate. It's fucking beautiful, boo boo. And like I went from there, and everything was fine. Like, you know what I mean? But it was like it took the wind right out of the sails. It was just like, like you heard that in the crowd.
Okay.
I say what he did right in that situation, though. He owned the moment and said, like, I meant you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you had tried to cover that somehow or bullshit your way through that situation, they would have smelled it from a mile away, and it would have ruined his whole set. The fact that he was like, let's be real, what really just happened? This is obviously what just happened. One
Yeah.
time,
You know what I mean?
I called a lady pregnant one time who was not
Good job,
pregnant.
Willie. Good
Yeah.
job.
But,
Oh my God.
like,
Jesus Christ.
I kind of was like, hold on, though. I was like, hold on. I was like, you do, like, she's like, no, I am. Like, she was like, I am kind of like, I'm not healthy. She's like, I have this disease. Yeah, she goes, I have this disease, but I do regret it. But she was like, I have this disease. But she did have, like, a baby-shaped type tumor type thing.
Oh.
But it was
my.
like, but there was another time, though, where I was talking to this lady. I was like, you're pregnant, right? And she was like, and the whole crowd started getting nervous. I'm like, she's fucking pregnant. Look at her. You know what I mean? And it was kind of like the opposite. This was more recently. And they were like, okay. So it was kind of like, you make judgment calls like that with the colleges. I've gotten fucked a million times with being like, hey, dude, what's going on? Like, what do you play football? And it's like some woman who's like, I'm not a dude.
It's hard to tell these days. I'm telling you.
Or they're like, I'm them. You know?
This is what I identify you as. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
So that's just unsafe, that kind of stuff. But those type of things, like just like the mic cord coming out or a waitress dropping drinks, they happen a million times. You see a comic have that thing in 1 second. It's not that they just came up with that. It's that it's happened so many times that they just have things ready.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's great for my follow-up question.
So this will probably have to be the last question.
Okay.
Fucking Walter, let's do this.
That leads me to my next question. That's probably have to be the last one, unfortunately.
Yes, that's fine. How fuckable am I? No, that's not it. My question is this though: what technique or what? And I know like the obvious answer is, well, it just comes with time. And yes, but you had to find a way to like you said, like that's just I'm not the comic to say that. When did you learn, or what strategy
The
did you
voice
use to learn that? Like what were you like? Oh, this helped me develop it.
You mean like your persona?
Well, just like.
'Cause that's-
No, like recovering from, because every comedian bombs at every stage of stand-up.
The recovery.
But like the recovery or the knowing that you're not the comic Like in his instance, it would be the recovery. But for you saying like, oh, I'm just not like that's not who I am as a comic.
Well, it's kind of just not who I was that night. I guess
Yeah.
now if I really wanted to say the word cunt, I could make it happen for myself. I could make it me.
Yeah.
That night, it would be like if I all of a sudden now was like, I fucking love Trump and I hate blacks, and like people would be like, what? Well, this doesn't fit in with all the other jokes you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not the guy you
I
are.
was about to say, like, it's just cunt didn't match everything else he was doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So it's kind of like if I opened with something like that, I might be able to win him over. But what comedy is, what makes a good comedian, I think,
Yes.
and what makes a good actor, the skill is, but comedians need it more, is to be able to read a room,
Okay.
It's within a second, from second to second. It's like being a weatherman of that room. So you're kind of like, ooh, it's a little cold in here. Time to heat it up, like, right? It's a little, and that instinct, that's what is really getting stronger when you're at the open mic and you're at the fundraiser gig bombing in front of like 12 people in a VFW hall. Each one of those things, you're growing that muscle a little bit more of like, all right, I know when to bring them up, when to set them down. It's a weird type of hypnosis that you have with them, and I think that's what's...
It's a good word to use for it. It really
Yeah.
is.
And what's good about this thing is it's so hard. If everyone could just do it in like 3 months, like being a locksmith, you know what I mean? You like go to school and then you get a job as a locksmith. It's like if everyone could do it, it's a fun fucking gig. Everyone would do it, but it takes like 5 years to become like acceptable.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the bummer, but it's also kind of like the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, I don't think as a comic you're bookable before 5 years, and unless you're just a fucking phenom.
Yeah, and that
Like,
does
you know what I
happen,
mean?
and everyone thinks they're the phenom, but
they're not.
we're not.
Yeah.
No one's standing in a parking lot.
Somebody else has to think you are. Like, you can't
Yeah.
just be you.
No,
Like, you know what I mean?
totally. Yeah.
It's usually that type of shit is like literally like
It's the
not
hope.
even once in a year. It's like once every 10 years there's
Yeah.
someone who just walks into this business, but it's rare as fuck. Like it's as rare as fucking rare.
But I get what you're saying is like each time you go through that, you're like, oh, okay, another layer of being
each
better
time,
at it.
It's just like sounds so corny. I use this example all the time, but it's like the Euro Dreams of Sushi documentary. This guy like made the same piece of sushi like 500 times a day for 13 years, and he would like push it to this master, and his master would be like, needs more of this, needs more of that. That's like what stand-up is, and like you'll be 99, about to die, and you'll be like, I just figured out something about stand-up.
Wow. Cool.
That's a good way to end it, right?
Yeah.
it is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, EJ Edmonds. That was
EJ
really great.
Edmonds.
Colleen Genevieve.
That's me. Yeah.
And I'm Will Noonan. And anyone have anything they'd like to promote while they're here?
www.ejedmonds.com. Okay, you can find me on there. Most of my stuff will be there, or if you want to find me social media at Mr. EJ Edmonds, MrEJ Edmonds. All right, on everything.
EJ's awesome, good friend of mine. I'm actually glad this fucking worked out this way it did.
Awesome.
Hell yeah.
Don't leave me hanging.
My man.
And of course, Colleen, what do you have?
Twitter. So I don't have Twitter.
Any
I
shows?
love Instagram, but I actually do have a couple exciting things. I'm on the Last Comics Standing at Mohegan Sun, but I'm also going to be in Portland, Maine for a comedy festival. I got into my first comedy festival.
There you go.
Going too.
Oh, hell yeah.
I don't know what.
Oh, shit.
I'm going.
Which
and
one?
then,
Shout out to Ian Stewart.
yeah,
Oh,
Portland,
yeah.
Maine
Good
Comedy
dude.
Festival.
Also smokes a lot of weed.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Instagram and social media at Colleen Genevieve with an extra E.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. And remember, if no one told you they love you today, I do. Peace out. That's my sign off.
I like it.
Isn't that nice? I stole that.
Beautiful.
I stole that from a Harlem
Makes you
principal.
want to hug your ass.
Harlem principal?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing, hypothetically. Podcast 1, 2, 3. This is Will Noonan. This is Will coming at you 1, 2, 3. Providence, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I am in Pawtucket, Rhode Island right now. I am in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I'm in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I'm in Pawtucket, Rhode Island.